So I thought I'd make a little video that answered some of the questions I get asked most frequently. And the first question is, what inspired you to become an author? Well, it's a really good question. I was inspired when I was young, when I was in school, by loving the books I read and by my dad, who used to make up stories at bedtime and actually all day long. He was very playful with language. He'd make up all kinds of silly rhymes and songs. He still does. And I loved it. I love the idea that you can just make up your own stories. So even though I didn't have lots of money and I didn't have lots of books, we were lucky enough to be able to go to the library and to make up stories of our own. I just loved it. Loved being in control of your characters and your situations and what happens in the stories. It's just my favourite thing to do, to daydream, use my imagination and then play with words. I love putting different words together and seeing where they'll take me. So yeah, my dad and reading lots of lovely, brilliant children's books. And I still read children's books now as well as grown-up books. I read everything I can. I'd highly recommend you do the same. It's great fun. So the second question that I get asked a lot is, how long does it take to write a book? The truth is, it's different all the time. So sometimes an idea, like the idea for the world made a rainbow, that idea woke me up at 3:30 in the morning, and I knew I just had to get up and write it. So I got up at 3:30, tiptoed downstairs, not wanting to wake my family up, and started writing. And I was finished by about 6:30, so that was 3 hours to write a book, although it still needed editing. Now I sometimes call editing polishing. It's where I look at the words I've written and check whether they're all exactly the best words that I could have picked. Sometimes they need a little bit of polishing, a little bit of editing, and that might take a really long time. It might take a few more hours, it might take a few more weeks, it might take months or years. I also write longer books like this one, Do Not Disturb the Dragons. Now, that has a lot more words in it. It has about 16,000 words. And I had to learn how to write longer books because I'm used to writing shorter ones. So that took me a lot longer. It probably took me about a year, something like that, to write it. But actually, in truth, all of my books have taken my whole life. They've taken a whole lifetime of trying and going wrong and keeping on trying again. And the truth is, even though I'm 43 years old now, at least I am at the time of recording this, I still make mistakes all the time. I go wrong lots, and if you could see all the mistakes I made writing any book and you had all that paper there and all the mistakes I've made, it would be a lot thicker than it ends up. So don't give up is my number one tip to you as well. So another question I get asked the whole time is, what's my favourite book? And some children ask me, what's my favourite book that I've written by myself? And other children want to know what my favourite book by a different author is. So I'm going to answer both bits of the question. Usually my favourite book on the day you ask me is whatever book I'm working on at the minute, or whichever book just came out. So I'm going to say When Jelly Had a Wobble today, because it just came out a couple of weeks ago and I've been sharing it with lots of children in different schools and at home in lockdown at the minute of recording this. And it's been so much fun to share the story of a wobbly jelly who feels better thanks to the kindness, a few kind words from his friends. And that's a really nice book to have written. I'm also very proud of this one because I managed to write a longer book. It was a tough challenge and I went wrong a lot. And I'm currently working on book number 2. This is Do Not Disturb the Dragons, and book 2 is Do Not Mess with the Mermaids, and it comes out in summer 2021. That's this year. I better pull my finger out and get on with it. And favourite books by other people. I love The BFG by Roald Dahl. I love the idea that giants can blow your dreams into you while you sleep through your window. I just love that, and I love all the silly fun in it with Frobscottle and Whizpoppers. I love that. I love Charlotte's Web, which is about a girl and her pig, and the pig makes friends with a spider who writes wonderful messages, kind messages about the pig in her web. I love all the books by Dr. Seuss, like Hop on Pop and Fox in Socks. I love the way he plays with language. And I really love the poetry of Edward Lear. He was a nonsense poet. He wrote a poem you'll definitely know called The Owl and the Pussycat. He's one of my favourite authors ever. I love reading his poems. So the other question I get asked a lot, this is question number 4 for anyone counting, is where do you get your ideas? Where do ideas come from? And I wish I knew the answer, because I'd go out and catch them all, like the BFG catching dreams and putting them in jars to blow into your window. I'd go out and catch ideas. The truth is, ideas are kind of magic. No one really quite knows, at least I don't think anyone really quite knows where they come from. The truth is, just like your body is growing and you need to feed it with lots of good nutrients to keep it healthy and growing, your brain needs to grow too. And your brain is hungry, just like your tummy. It needs input. So to come up with ideas, you need to live. You need to do as many things as you can. You need to notice things. Authors, just like children, are very observant. We notice things, and we're always thinking, and we're always wondering what it feels like to be a different person in a different situation, or even an animal, or even in my case I might wonder what a jelly feels like, or a banana, and what it feels like to be in these different situations. And because we take notice of the world around us, and we talk to our friends, and we listen to them, and we play, and we watch movies, and we read books, and we just keep our eyes and our minds open, that's us feeding our brains. And then when you've filled your brains with all these different things, your brain has this wonderful knack of all these things you know and these things you've noticed bumping into each other in your brain in funny different ways, and then pop, out comes an idea, all of its own. It's wonderful, and when it happens well, it's the best thing ever. And the more you let yourself notice, the more you enjoy stories, whether it's on TV or in books, or playing games, making up games and stories with your friends in the playground, or even with your toys at home, the bigger your imagination grows, the more ideas you're able to come up with. It's magic, it's really magic, and I love it. So the final question, and it's one that I do get asked a lot, is what was the first book I'd ever written? I've written about 40, 41, something like that. If you went to a bookshop or a library and they had one of all of my books, I think it was something like 41 now. This was the first one. It's called What to Do If an Elephant Stands on Your Foot. It has a big elephant on the outside. And the most recent one, as I said, was When Jelly Had a Wobble. And yes, I'm always writing new ones. So this year I'm making this video in 2021, and I think there are 5 of my books coming out this year. When Jelly Had a Wobble, which is already out, and then Do Not Mess with the Mermaids. I think there's a story called Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry, and there's one called Witch in Training, and there's one called 1, 2, 3, Do the Shark. So I'm always working on new books and have new books coming out, and that's really good fun. So now, those are my most popular questions answered. I have a few questions for you. Do you have a pen or a pencil? Do you have some paper or a notepad? Any old paper will do. And do you have a nice big imagination and an idea? And what are you going to write?